This video is about how I stabilise my wood that I'm going to use for my knife scales, and some of the problems that I've experienced with wood. It's a natural product, that's stating the obvious, but as such, when you first take the wood from the tree, it's saturated with water, and so obviously we then season the wood. So you get your blocks of wood and you've had them in your house for a year or two, and they feel very, very dry. There's ways we can actually improve on that. We can store them in the airing cupboard to get them a little bit drier, or if you want to be really clever like me, you can build yourself a wood drying cabinet. This is an old gun cabinet which is no longer meets current regulations, so it's no longer used for the storage of guns. But I've made racks inside it, and I've put a little heating tube in the bottom, and you can see there I've got my wood drying in there. And this is all well and good, and the end results are wood that is extremely dry, not quite at 0%, but they're still, believe it or not, even though they've been in there for a year, there's still moisture in that wood. So this brings me on to another problem before I talk about actually how we remove all that moisture and how we stabilise these scales. Now, the amount of moisture in that wood is far less than if I had another block of wood in this room. The block of wood that's left in this room will have equalised at the moisture level that's in the air around it. Likewise, this block of wood that was in there is equalised with the amount of moisture that was in the air surrounding it in that cabinet. So I've taken it out of that cabinet, that nice warm environment, into this environment which surrounds me now, and what will happen, that will then immediately start to take on moisture from all around the air, that's in the air rather, and as a result that will cause the fibres to expand. Ever so slightly, you'd hardly notice it, but you would notice it. If you look very closely, or you know what to look for, you'll notice it. This is exacerbated somewhat by going outdoors, where currently it's raining and it's very damp out there, or even more so to the Amazon rainforest, or other exotic locations like that. So what some people will do is actually try and seal the wood using linseed oil or other products, and this will have an effect on stopping the ingress of moisture, but it won't be absolutely foolproof, and the moisture will still get into the wood and the wood will still expand slightly. So it's a real problem, and what I now do is to properly stabilise these the wood that I'm going to use for my scales, and that's what you're going to see in the video which now follows. Thanks for watching. In this video I'd like to show you the processes that I go through to stabilise the wood that I'm going to use for my knife handles for my scales, and it's a process which starts and also finishes in my kitchen here. But first, it's probably a good idea to give you a demonstration of why we need to stabilise wood. The stabilising process virtually eliminates the chance that the wood can absorb moisture, and therefore if it can't absorb moisture, the wood won't expand or it won't shrink. So basically you're just making the wood into a very, very stable material. Now at the moment this is a piece of yew, and at the moment this wood contains obviously the cellulose fibres of the wood itself, and lots of air and lots of water. Now this was cut, well, I've had this block of wood for over a year, and it's been stored in the house, and it feels very dry, you know, and to many people they would look at that and say that's perfectly well seasoned. A quick demonstration to show you just how much water there is in wood. Please bear in mind this is a seasoned piece of wood as well. For this demonstration I'm going to use my microwave oven. So here's a microwave. It's handy if your wife or partner goes out shopping. In this case my wife's away shopping at the moment. So I'm going to place the piece of wood in the microwave and heat it up. You've got to be very careful doing this because if you apply too much heat you can actually blow the wood. You can the steam will blow the fibres of the wood, so it's a very delicate process. So there we are, we've heated our wood. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to get a mirror. Now a mirror, if you the moisture in my breath, you see how it's condensing on the mirror. This always surprises me, just how much moisture there is. Well, here's the mirror, and here's the wood, and just watch that mirror. And there's all your condensation from the wood. There's the other side of the mirror to show you again. So hopefully that's demonstrated just how much moisture there is in that wood. And that wood, actually, when I first took it out of the microwave, it felt quite damp with the steam coming off of it. So even though it's been seasoned for possibly a year or even 2 years, there's still moisture in there. And for the stabilisation process to work properly, we need to remove every bit of moisture, or as much as we possibly can. And there's a way that we can actually remove virtually all the moisture from this wood. One way, which is quite radical, is to use the microwave and blast it in the microwave. But you've got to be really careful how you do that, because as I say, the expanding steam can crack the fibres of the wood and ruin the scale. The other way is to use a conventional oven and set it to 100 degrees centigrade, and then leave your pieces of wood in there to just gently bake. That way the fibres of the wood aren't destroyed. The water forms a vapour and evaporates. But it takes some time. Doing it this way, you're looking at a 12 to 18 hour drying process in the oven, and that's what's going on now. You can hear the noise of the oven in the background. Okay, so my wood has now been drying in the oven for a sufficient amount of time. I'm happy it's completely dry. So I'm going to pull it out. There we go, there's the wood. At the moment it's quite hot, so I've got to let it cool down, but there's something very important I must do before I do that. So the wood is actually drier than the actual surrounding air, and it will take moisture from the air as it cools. So we need to get this wood vacuum clean film. And this simply just keeps the moisture from the air being absorbed back into the fibres of the wood. Just leave that to cool down now, and then it's onto the vacuum chamber. Okay, my wood now is cooled down. It's been kept nice and dry. There's no access to the air. So it's now time to put the wood into my vacuum chamber. This is the chamber that I got from Turntex Woodworks over in the States. Well, that's the wood now loaded into the chamber, as you can see. I've got this little clamp which goes on the inside of the chamber, and then you rotate it and you find a position where it sits nice and firmly, and then what that does, that just holds the wood down, because the wood will want to float when you first add the resin to the chamber, which is now what I'm going to do. The resin, it's a thermo setting resin. In other words, when you heat it to a certain temperature, it hardens. So it's got to be stored in a cool, dark environment. And the catalyst has already been added to this. It's called Cactus juice. That's just a generic term they've given it. It's not cactus juice, it's a thermosetting resin. So I'm just going to secure my vacuum chamber to make sure that it doesn't fall over. So I've simply got a piece of bungee there. And then I'll add the cactus juice. And I'll make sure that I'll go a fair way over the top of the wood. You can see I've gone a couple of inches above the wood there. Now it's time to apply the vacuum. So with this chamber, it's just a matter of placing the lid on. And over here, I think you can just about see it in the shot, is my vacuum pump. So now turn that on. At the moment it's drawing air through this valve here. So I'm going to close the valve, and immediately you'll see the air start to be drawn out of the wood. Here it comes, look. And you see it's quite a rapid reaction. So I'll just reduce the vacuum. I don't want the air bubbles to be sucked up into the machine. And what I'll do, I'll just continually manipulate the vacuum until I've got sufficient air out of the wood, at which point then I can leave the vacuum chamber turned on to full vacuum, and it won't overspill. Well, it's been a good 10 minutes now, and I'm now able to leave the valve fully closed and allow the pump to pull a full vacuum, and it's got to the point now where it's no longer going to overspill. And then what will happen over the course of time, the amount of bubbles coming out of the wood will diminish, and by the time I come to remove the vacuum altogether, we're talking about an 8-hour process. The bubbles will be down to virtually zero, and then that's when I turn the vacuum off, so that'll be later on this evening, just before I go to bed, I expect. Well, they've been under vacuum now for the best part of 8 hours, with the pump running all the time. I've marked the level of the fluid, the resin, and so when I come to release the vacuum, you should see the actual vacuum will in the wood will draw the resin into the wood fibres. So I'm going to release the vacuum now, and you're looking at the I'll just zoom in a bit. You should see the level of the resin drop. Turn the vacuum pump off, and you can see already there's been a small drop in the level of the resin in the chamber, and over the course of the next couple of days it will absorb all that resin, possibly down to about this level here, and that will have gone into the wood fibres. Anyway, let's zoom out a bit. It's now time for me to go to bed. Well, here we are, a day and a half later. Well, nearly 2 days later actually. And there's our vacuum chamber. And as you can see, the level of the resin has dropped considerably as it's been drawn into the scales. It's really crucial to leave it to soak. Someone did tell me once that as soon as the bubbles stop after you vacuum, that's it, you can pull your scales out, but that's categorically incorrect. You must leave your wood in the resin to draw the resin into the wood once the vacuum has been released. As I say, I leave mine in for a day and a half to 2 days to absorb as much resin as possible. So the next stage now is to simply drain off all the cactus juice, which can be reused, and then to individually wrap each block of wood in aluminium foil, and then we go back to the oven and bake it in the oven at just below 100 degrees centigrade, and this sets the resin to form a solid block. So simply this doesn't matter now, just pouring out very carefully the scales. Notice I'm wearing the marigolds. You don't want to get this stuff on your hands. And then I'm going to wrap them individually in foil. Just like that. Just when wrapping them, what I've got to do is make sure that I wrap them like that, and then there must not be any contact with wood on wood, because if there is, what will happen, as it cures in the oven, you end up with one big solid block of wood, and you never get them apart. Here we are, all wrapped up, and now time for the oven. Cook with Jacklaw. The actual curing of these resin blocks now is a one-shot process. You take them up to this temperature, you cook them for a period of time, and then that hardens them. If you don't get it the first time, then your wood is ruined. It won't cure a second time. So it's best just to leave it in there, let the heat do its magic, and hopefully in about 2 or 3 hours time we should have stabilised blocks of wood. Well, been some time later now, and the wife wants to use the oven to cook the dinner. Ideally you don't really want to be doing this in your domestic oven, and as soon as I can get a better way of doing it, I will. But I mean, the oven will do it perfectly. Anyway, let's get these out. It's quite a strong smell of the resin in the kitchen at the moment. So they're handleable. You can handle them, but they are a bit on the hot side. So there they are. They're now cooked. So we'll let them cool down and we'll have a look at them. Well, here's the results of my efforts. They're still on the hot side, but just about hand holdable now. Basically, I think that's Wenge. That's what Sean gave me. There's a piece of walnut. Right. Looking good. Another piece of walnut there, and here. So what you get, what the scales look like close up, you can see the resin is solidified, and it's left the scales incredibly hard, and as I said, that resin's been soaked and through and drawn right into the wood, and it's all been cooked now. It's all gone hard, and so I'm left with a handle material now which is going to be impervious to moisture. It's always a great time. It's still quite hot actually. When you're opening up your scales after you've cooked them. And there's some lovely use. Some of this stuff you wouldn't be able to use as it is. You simply couldn't use it because it would be full of knots and other bits and pieces. It just wouldn't allow it to be used as a handle material unless you stabilised it. So the stabilising process means I can use all these lovely grains now that I couldn't use before, with the knowledge that they're not going to crack they're not going to shrink, and it's perfectly stable. If that hadn't been stabilised and you put that on a knife, you'd get all sorts of problems. So, as I say, they are a bit on the hot side at the moment. But the resin's cured beautifully. Still a lot of work to do to get them flat, but that'll make a. Just imagine how that'll look when that's all done, and polished and buffed up. That'll be beautiful. That would be a beautiful piece of wood. So anyway, I hope this this video has given you an insight into the levels I go to try and get my handles as good as I can get them. When I started knife making, I endeavoured to do the best I could at every stage, and as I've progressed, you know, I've gone through every stage and taken it to the best I can do it. And with the stabilising of the scales, for the small scale knife maker working like I do from home, this is as good as it gets. There's no better way of stabilising your wood than this process that I'm using at the moment, and it's just my conscience that dictates to me that I've got to do this, because I know then in my heart that the knife I'm selling is as good as it possibly can be, and that's really important to me. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching the process and you've taken something from it. Please feel free to leave a comment, and if you've got any questions, I'll endeavour to answer your questions. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.